Hello friends, welcome back to the Craft Castle. Back to school season is coming up and these interchangeable signs are all the rage right now over on Etsy, and today I'm going to show you how to design this exact file. I've decided that a new thing that I'm going to be offering is if you don't even want to design this file and just buy the SVG file, you're more than welcome to do so. I made it available in my cardstock warehouse, but if you wanted to learn how to design this from start to finish, this video is for you and you want to keep watching. These interchangeable signs are absolutely amazing, so popular right now, and they're just made out of wood. This right here just kind of slides on in. It doesn't even hook onto anything. My particular sign, the pencil is wood down, but you can also make this interchangeable if you have multiple children. There's also layers of wood. These apples right here are all interchangeable and they go on this little magnet. Every single one of them has magnets on the back. So today I'm going to show you how to make this sign from start to finish. This is going to be a two-part series. The first part is going to be how to design this file, and the second part is how to cut and assemble this file. So why don't we head over to the computer and start with the design. Today, I'm going to be doing the design of this file inside of Inkscape. Inkscape is a free design program and I love to use it. One, because it's free, but two, since this is a laser cut file, I'm going to be able to use this file in my Glowforge or my Epilogue or even my Xtool. I know that if you have a Glowforge, they have their own design program, and the same goes for the Xtool. Sometimes though, when you build files in their programs, they don't really convert well when you move over to a different laser cutter. And if you're like me and you have multiple brands of laser cutter, I just like to do it in Inkscape just because then I can distribute it wherever I need to for whatever laser cutter machine. That being said, after I'm done creating this file, if you have an Xtool or a Glowforge, you can use this file for either one of those programs. Okay, so the very first thing you want to do is open up a blank window in Inkscape. I personally love to change my canvas, which is this board, over to whatever my bed size is. I personally am going to be using my Glowforge to cut this file, but if you are going to be using your Xtool that has a 12 by 12 bed, do that. But what we're going to do is we're going to go over here into File and then Document Properties. Okay, I'm going to change my units over from millimeters to inches, and I'm going to do the bed size for my Glowforge. So it's 20 by 12, and then I'm just going to exit out of that. So this right here is the full working area of my Glowforge. If I make something bigger than this rectangle, that means it's not going to fit in my laser cutter and it won't work. So the very first thing we're going to do for this project is we are going to make the backer of this. So the main piece of our project. So I'm going to insert this rectangle and I'm going to make it any size right now. Okay, and if you're like me, I'm kind of like that, a stickler for things looking the way they are. If we are actually thinking, because my design looks like a piece of notebook paper and they have like rounded corners, it's not like hard cornered edges. So over here, you're gonna see this like little circle. If we click that circle and we drag it down, do you see how now our corners are getting rounder? So notebooks don't look like that. They look just a hair round. So I'm just gonna make it a little bit round. And the cool thing about creating your own SVG files is you get to make it has any way you want. If you want rounder corners or not rounded corners, you could totally do that. Okay, when we have the corners the way you want it, you're just gonna come over here to the arrow tool and click the arrow tool. My particular sign is going to be 8 by 10. So I'm gonna go over here into millimeters, I'm gonna change it over to inches, and I'm gonna change my design over 8 by 10. Since this is your design, you get to make it however size you want. Now this just looks like a blank old rectangle, right? We need to add some stripes into it, make it look like an actual notebook. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come down here into this little tool right here, click on that, and then I'm just gonna draw a line from the very top of my notebook paper to the very bottom. Now, don't worry about the fact that it's not going to be straight. I'm just gonna go from the top to the bottom and click. Then I'm gonna come up here into my arrow tool and then just click my arrow tool. Do you see how my line is like crooked? So what you wanna do is click on your line again, and now did you see how those arrows changed from like straight, like diagonal to now a curved? What you can do is just taking the corner and we can straighten out our line until it's a straight line. So we have one going from top to bottom, and then you can rearrange this line to where it looks like it's, going to be a notebook paper for that margin. And then when you're done doing that, we're just gonna click that line and we're gonna Command D, which is duplicate. It'll look like nothing happened, but we can come up into this arrow tool and we are gonna turn this around 90 degrees. We're just gonna shift it around. We're gonna drag this up. This is gonna be our very first line of our notebook paper. So I'm just gonna put it, like at the very top, somewhere at the top, just like regular notebook paper, how you have that little header up top. So I'm gonna do that. This line is obviously way too long for my square, so I'm just gonna take that this middle thing, see how there's like a middle arrow right here, and I'm just gonna resize this down to about the size of my notebook paper. Okay, when I have that done, I'm just gonna take that one horizontal line and I'm gonna Command D, which is duplicate, and I'm gonna drag it down. Okay, and now we want to fill up that very bottom portion of our notebook paper. We want to make it look like a notebook paper. So I'm just going to keep Command D and I'm going to drag another line down. It's okay if you don't have the spacing correct because we're going to fix that here in a second. So I am just creating lines, filling up this bottom portion, and it's okay if they get off center, if they're hanging off the side, we're going to fix that. Okay, so I have all of these lines now. I am going to select only the lines that we have, so how many ever lines you decided to create, and I'm going to click this Align button, and I'm going to align them vertically. Now I'm going to go down to the Distribute side, and I'm going to click this button right here. What that's going to do is it's going to move all the lines, and so they have even gaps throughout the entire project. Do you see how the lines just moved and now everything is evenly spaced? That's exactly what we wanted. That made life so much easier. Okay, if I click out of it, you will notice that like my lines over here are hanging off. So now all I'm gonna do is clicking just the lines, pressing Shift on my keyboard and also my rectangle, or what's going to be our notebook paper. Now I'm gonna do the same thing I did before and I'm going to center them vertically. All right, and it's already starting to look like a piece of notebook paper, which is amazing. Okay, so every notebook paper has some holes, so we're gonna go over here into a circle and we're gonna make a hole. Make it any size you want, and we're gonna hit this arrow tool, and I'm gonna resize this to be an actual circle. So all circles are even with your width and height. So I'm gonna do 0.455 just like the other side. And so now I have an even circle. If you wanted to resize this and make this bigger or smaller, make sure that this lock is locked. So then when we go to resize this, it's going to resize evenly so it doesn't get all distorted again. So I have one up here and I need 3. So I'm gonna have a Command D, which is duplicate. I'm gonna drag one down and I'm gonna do the same thing I just did, Command D, which is duplicate, and I'm gonna drag another one down. So now I have 3 holes. Okay, so I wanna make sure that everything is aligned appropriately and evenly distributed. So I'm going to select only the circles. We're gonna come over here, we're gonna line this vertically. We're also gonna do the same button we did for the lines, and we're gonna distribute them evenly throughout. And did you see that middle circle moved just a hair? That's exactly what we needed. Okay, now that I have that, this is optional. The one that I created before, the holes are just painted in, they're not see-through. The one that I'm creating today, I actually want the holes to be cut out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna Command Shift and the plus sign, which is welding it together. I'm going to make sure that these are lined up inside my piece of paper where I want it, where it's kind of, it seems like it's right down the middle of this little column right here. Okay, when I have that done, I'm gonna click on my circles, Shift on my keyboard and my rectangle, and I'm gonna Command Shift and the minus key, and we just sliced it together. Because we haven't filled anything in, it really didn't look like much has changed, but essentially what we did was we took those circles and we made them cut files that go into our notebook paper. If you wanted to keep them like this and then you would have to later go in and fill them in or engrave them, you did not have to do that step. You just leave them the way that they sit. Okay, so now we're going to need the ruler of our board. So I'm gonna scoot over just a little bit and I'm gonna go back over here into a rectangle and I am just gonna make a rectangle. Whenever you're working in Inkscape, whatever your previous settings were stays that same. So we had created a rectangle with rounded corners, but Normally, a ruler has squared edges. So because I don't want rounded corners, I'm going to take this circle and I'm going to drag it up to meet the other circle. And now our rounded corners are now squared off. Okay, making it any size that you want. We're going to go over here into the arrow tool. Now I can just resize this any size that I want. If you wanted to size this up to your board, you could just drag this over. We can just make sure that it looks really good. Now I have cuss mode on. Do you see how now it says the corner is in cuss mode? And it kind of just doesn't want to like let me move around too much. If you want to turn that off, just come over here and click that button. Okay, so we have, now it's like freely moving, and I'm just going to resize this to where it's just a little bit bigger than my board. That's about the size that I want it to be. So now I'm just going to drag that rectangle over to the right. Okay, now what we need to do is work on the lines for our ruler. So doing the same thing we've done before previously, we're going to create this rectangle tool, and we are just going to make a rectangle. And then when we're done doing that, because we have hard corners before, we're still gonna have hard corners, we're just gonna click that arrow tool. Let's zoom in. And if you're on a trackpad, like on your laptop, zooming in is doing this on the trackpad, or you could do the plus and minus key on your keyboard. Make these any size width that you want and height, doesn't matter. Your design, you get to do it however you want. Okay, and then you're gonna create as many rectangles that you need for your project. So I'm gonna have 13 total because I'm going from K through 12. So I'm gonna do Command D, which is duplicate, and I'm gonna do, there's one. Now I'm gonna select both those small little rectangles, and I'm gonna do Command D, which is duplicate. Now I have 4. So I'm gonna now select those 4 rectangles, Command D, which is duplicate. Now I have 8. And let's do a Command D, which is duplicate. There's 4, and now I need one more. So I'm just gonna select one, Command D, which is duplicate, and I'm gonna drag this one all the way down, or close to all the way down. Okay, the spacing is all off. So I'm gonna select all of those small little rectangles that we created. I'm gonna go up here, I'm gonna align these all to the top, and then I'm gonna come over here, and before we've done this one right here, I'm gonna now click this one. Do you see how now all of those rectangles are evenly distributed? That's exactly what we wanted. Okay, clicking out of that, now what we wanna do is create the engravings like the K through 12 that I have here. So we're gonna insert a text box, and I'm just gonna click underneath our text box. So for me, what I'm going to do is go capital K, space, and then I'm just going to do first, second, third, fourth, and we're going to keep doing this until we have all of what we need. Okay, I have filled up my entire text box with all the text that I'm going to need for this. Then I'm going to come up over here into the arrow tool, and I'm going to drag this over into my file. It's okay that nothing's lined up because we're going to fix that here in a minute. Now that we have it moved over so we can see what we're doing, I'm going to come up here into this T button, and I'm going to click that. My text box is now going to come up. With our text box selected, you are now going to look for the font that you want to use. I'm going to use KG Miss Kindergarten. This is like the cutest little school font, I think. When I've clicked that, I'm just going to press apply. Okay, my text box has changed, but it still doesn't match up with the rectangles, and we need that to rectangle. So what I'm going to do is Command Shift C, which is creating a path, and then I'm Command Shift G, which is ungroup. So now every single character is its own thing. That being said, they are no longer editable texts. They are now paths. So these are cuttable files. So I'm going to click out of that. I'm only going to select the K. I'm going to bring that K over here. I'm going to put it underneath this one rectangle. Now I'm going to select all of first. I'm going to Command Shift and the plus sign, which is welding it together. And now I'm going to drag that over to here. Doing the same thing with all the other letters. I'm going to select the 3, the 2, and the N and the D, Command Shift and the plus sign, and I'm going to drag it over until it looks good on my rectangle. You're going to want to do the same thing with every single letter or grade that you have. Okay, so all of my texts are now welded and put in kind of placed where I want them to go. Same thing we've done for everything else. I'm only going to select all the grades. I'm going to go down here to align and distribute. I'm going to align these horizontal. And then I'm also going to distribute them evenly. Okay, in my original file, I have mine put to like a 90 degree. If you wanted to do that, all you would need to do is click on one letter, and we're just gonna come up here and we're gonna rotate them sideways. For this project, I am not going to rotate them because I think it's like easier to read when the child is holding the sign. Okay, the next thing you're going to do to make this ruler complete is we're gonna need to create this triangle. This triangle also has like something on the back of it to where it's not gonna clip on, but it will stay there. So when the child's holding the thing, it's not gonna fall off. I mean, it will fall off, it's because it's just hanging there. But at least for picture purposes, it's not going to fall off, and then you can just move it wherever. So we're gonna need to create this. We're gonna go over here into this like star and polygon button, click on that, making sure that up here we have 3 corners because all triangles have 3 corners. And I am just going to make a triangle. It doesn't matter if it's straight or whatever, we can rotate that. We're just gonna make any size triangle. Then when we're done doing that, we're gonna come over here, click this arrow tool. Okay, my triangle is at a slant and I don't want it as a slant. So I'm just going to click it again. And now I have the arrows that are curved. Drag this down until it lines up straight. Okay, so the same thing we did with the ruler back at the notebook. If you wanted to size our little arrow tool to your ruler, we're just gonna drag this over. This seems like a pretty decent size. Like, I did great eyeballing that. Okay, so now what we want to do is, you see how my arrow has, it's just a triangle, but then on the other side there's like this half cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Command D, which is duplicate. I'm just going to drag it over. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to click one of my rulers, Command D, which is duplicate, just one of those little lines. I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger. Okay, I'm going to cut this somewhat in half. I don't want a full ruler because then you're not going to be able to hook it on there, but just something to where it will, like, you know, just stand on your ruler. So just a little lip is all I'm going to need. I'm going to select my new little rectangle, shift on my keyboard, and also my triangle. Then I'm going to come up here into path and then difference. So now I'm left with just that top little piece, which is this entire thing. Okay, now let's create that pencil. So because I've already created a rectangle right here, I want my pencil to be about the same size. So I'm going to Command D, which is duplicate, and I'm going to drag that rectangle down. This one, however, on one side of the pencil has a rounded corner. So I'm going to come over here into this nodes tool and see where the circle popped up. I'm now going to drag that down, and I want to just create the end of my pencil. We are only focused on one side of the pencil. We're going to fix that other side here in a second. Okay, and I kind of want my pencil to have a somewhat more rounded corner than my actual piece of notebook paper. When I have that done, I'm just going to click that arrow tool. Okay, I want my pencil to be a little bit shorter than my ruler, and I want it to be fatter. So I'm just gonna drag this down. There we go. Got a fat, shorter pencil. Okay, and then on the edge of every pencil, we have one rounded edge. We have a pointed edge. We already have created a triangle, so I'm just gonna click that triangle that we created, and I'm gonna Command D, which is duplicate. Now I need this tip of my pencil to be facing that way, so I'm just gonna come over here to this rotate. I'm gonna rotate it 90 degrees. So now that pencil tip is going to be facing the correct direction. Okay, I'm just gonna drag this up. Let me zoom in. Okay, I'm gonna drag this triangle up to the edge of my now pencil. And now I'm just gonna resize this to where it's about the width of my pencil. I'm gonna zoom out. Now I'm gonna take this tip and I'm just gonna make it longer. Okay, right now it's gonna look really funny, but we're gonna fix the weird edges here in a second. I'm gonna click my triangle, shift on my keyboard, and what's gonna be my pencil. I'm gonna Command Shift and the plus sign. And do you see how now I have these like weird little humps? That's okay, because now I'm gonna come over here into the nodes tool. I'm gonna select this node and delete it, and this node and delete it. Now I got a little wave on here. You can now straighten these out just like that. So you're just taking that line and you're just gonna straighten it out. When you have that done, we're just gonna come up here and do the arrow tool. Let's zoom out and look. There is what looks like a pencil. It's so cute. Okay, so now we're gonna need the lines in our pencil to mimic that like metal piece that's on every single pencil. So we are gonna come over here into this line tool. We've already used it before, so you should know how to use it. Just click that line tool and we're gonna make one line straight down to the bottom. It's okay if it's not straight because we can fix that. Once you have it clicked on the bottom, just come over here into the arrow. Now, it looks like it's curved, like it's slanted just a little bit, right? So I'm gonna zoom in, I'm gonna click on my line and I'm just gonna straighten it out. When you have that done, you can just click out of that. That looks like a really good line to me. Let me just make this a little bit smaller so it's about the width of my pencil. Okay, I am going to do 3 lines. So I have this one clicked. I'm gonna Command D, which is duplicate, drag this over, and I need another one, so Command D, which is duplicate, and drag this over. Okay, with all 3 of these lines, they're not evenly distributed, so I'm just gonna select only the lines. I'm gonna make sure that they are lined at the top, and then I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna evenly distribute these. See how now we have them evenly distributed? With my 3 lines clicked, I am just gonna put this down to however, like, if you want your pencil to have like a bigger eraser, because everything that's to the right of this line, these lines, is going to be your eraser. So however size you want that eraser, that's the size you're going to leave it at. So this right here is going to be the eraser. This right here is going to be your metal part. And then everything else is going to be what is the pencil. But the pencil is mostly yellow or this like goldenrod color. And then we have a little bit of these right here and then a little bit of black at the tip. So we need to create that jagged edge over at the very end. So we're gonna zoom into that side. Let's go and take this line tool. We've done it before. I'm gonna go from this edge. I'm gonna click on the edge. I'm gonna go up, click one, down, click another one. It's okay if your lines don't match up. We're gonna fix that in a second. But we are just gonna create a jagged line throughout our pencil. And I am gonna end my line in the same corner of where I started, just at the other end. And then I'm gonna come back here into this arrow tool. And so now we have something that looks like that, which really looks weird. So I'm gonna now go into this nodes tool, click on my line, everything that's over on the left. So all the nodes that are over on the left, I'm gonna hover over that and highlight all of them. Your align and distribute is going to look different than what it did before because we're changing the nodes over. I'm gonna come over here, I'm gonna distribute this vertically, and then I'm also going to make sure that these are all evenly spaced, just like we've done previously. It's gonna still look very weird. I'm also now gonna click only on the stuff on the right. So all the nodes that are on the right. I'm gonna make sure that all of my nodes are aligned vertically. So I'm gonna click that align button. Then I'm gonna come over here and do the same thing. And I'm gonna even out those nodes. Clicking out of it, so doing the arrow tool. Doesn't this look like an even better jagged line than what we had before? And that's just like simple clicks. Okay, I'm gonna leave that like that. So if you wanted to, you could add another line just like this, and that would just be like the end tip of your pencil. I, however, am not going to do that because your lead for your pencil is never even. So I don't want it to be like perfect. So I did not put that in my thing. And that's just so I can paint as much lead as I wanted to. So every board kind of looks a little different. Okay, and there, my friends, is our pencil. We need our apples. And while I could probably create an apple in Inkscape using the same functions that I have, I am not even going to try that hard. I'm just gonna go over into Creative Fabrica and I'm gonna download this Apple SVG file. It will be linked in the description of this video, so if you don't wanna create your own apple, you could also get this apple as well. When I have that apple downloaded, I am going to find my download and I'm going to insert my SVG file. So I'm just gonna drag this over, pressing OK. Okay, and here is my apple. The cool thing about the SVG file is that you're gonna get 3 individual pieces. My pieces are all cut individually and then I glued them on top of each other so it looks like you know, an apple. Some people, you know, weld them together and paint them, and I don't do that for my file. The same thing that we've done with all the rest of our components is that we have sized our pieces to fit our project. So because we now have this apple, it's gonna sit here somewhere around here, and then we're gonna need to put this pencil and stuff like that, right? So for the meantime, I am going to select this pencil and I'm gonna Command G, which is group. I'm gonna group this together. We're gonna ungroup that here in a second, but we're just gonna get some sizing. Plus we need to put the font on our backer board. So I just need to make sure that everything is going to look the way that I want it to look. Okay, so then I got my pencil up there. Here is my ruler. I'm gonna Command G, which is group, and I'm gonna slide this down here. This apple, when it like uploaded into Inkscape, it actually like uploaded a perfect size. I don't need to resize this. If you wanted to, you could go ahead and resize this at this point. Okay, so for my board, I have day of and then grade down here. So inserting another text box, I'm gonna click on my board and I'm gonna do day and then return and then of. I am just gonna click this arrow tool. I'm not gonna worry about grade here right now. And I'm gonna resize this so it fits on side of my lines. Okay, I want the same font that I use for the letters. So I'm going to click my text box and I'm going to scroll up. Generally, when you have already picked a font for one of your files on Inkscape, everything's going to be up here. So just scroll all the way to the top and we have that one. And I'm going to press apply. Okay, and I like the size of this. I like that the spacing matches on my lines. So now what I'm going to do, because I need that grade, I'm going to Command D, which is duplicate. I'm going to drag it down. I'm gonna double click this and I'm just gonna delete everything and I'm gonna put grade and then come over here into the arrow tool. So because grade is now gonna get cut off with that ruler, I'm just going to eyeball how I'm gonna place these onto my board. So I like it like this. Okay, so I like my font like that. My ruler is gonna go over here. I think that there is not good spacing between the apple and this pencil, so I'm just going to bring my apple up just a little bit. And I've now decided that I think that I want day on one line and then of down here. So I'm just going to Command Shift and C, which is creating a path, Command Shift G, which is ungrouping everything. I'm only going to select the letters in day and drag them up, and then I'm going to select of and I'm going to drag it down to this, to that middle line. Now that I have that, I do think my apple needs to be a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to create a bigger apple. Now this is kind of what my board is going to look like when I go to the assembly process, and I like the look of this. So now what I'm going to do is drag my ruler over because I don't need it there anymore, and I'm going to Command Shift and G, which is ungrouping everything, doing exact like we're putting it back to what we had before. And I'm going to take this pencil, dragging it over, and I'm going to Command Shift and G again, which is ungroup. Now I have my apple. I'm just going to drag this up to right here. And for my particular project, I offer 3 different apples: first, last, and 100th. So I'm going to need 3 duplicates of this. So clicking on one, I'm going to Command D, which is duplicate. I'm going to drag this over, and I'm going to Command D, which is duplicate, and drag this over. Now I need to ungroup all of these. So now I'm going to select all 3 of these apples, and I'm going to Command Shift and G. So now all of my pieces are now ungrouped. So clicking on grade, because we haven't created a path for this yet, I'm going to Command D, which is duplicate, and I'm going to drag this up. I could have just inserted another text box and done that way, but you know, since it's already here, why not? Now that I don't need this anymore as an editable file, I'm going to Command Shift and C, which is creating a path, Command Shift G, which is ungrouping, and Command Shift and the plus sign, which is welding it together. Going back over into my apples, double click that text box. I'm going to select all and do first, and let's do last, and let's do 100th. If you want to do other interchangeable apples with different names or what have you, keep going and keep duplicating your apples and creating new texts for them. When you're done, we're just going to use this arrow tool and click that. Let's drag this above our apples. Okay, making sure that everything is spelled correctly, because once we do this, it's uneditable. We're going to Command Shift and C, which is creating a path, Command Shift G. Same thing we did with the ruler. I am going to select my first Command Shift and plus sign, and I'm going to drag this inside of that red portion of my apple. For last, we're going to select all of last, Command Shift and the plus sign, and we're going to drag this down. For 100th, doing the same thing, 100th, Command Shift plus sign, and drag this down. Now 100th won't fit in my apple like that, right? So I'm just gonna make this a little bit smaller inside my apple. Okay, to make sure that everything is aligned inside your apple, we're gonna select the app. We're gonna select the first shift on our keyboard and the apple, and we're gonna align it center and horizontal. Now going into last, click the last and the apple, shift on the keyboard, and we're gonna center vertical and horizontal. Doing the same thing with 100th. Okay, the very last thing for this project is creating the name for your pencil. So this is any name that you want. We're gonna go into a text box, and I'm just gonna click inside of my pencil, because any name that I create, I want it to fit inside that pencil. And we are just gonna put the name that we need. When I have that done, I'm gonna click that arrow tool. I'm gonna come down here to my text and fonts. Same thing we did with everything else. I'm just gonna find the font that I like. I absolutely love this rainbow font. I've been using this for everything. It's so freaking cute. Making sure that this is locked, I'm gonna click my rainbow, press apply, and then I'm just gonna make this bigger. Okay, and then in order to create, because this is still an editable text file, the same thing we did with everything else. When I have this size the way I want, I'm just gonna drag it up here. And I'm going to Command Shift C, which is creating a path, Command Shift G, which is ungrouping. Now for this particular font, this S is not connected to everything else. So I'm just going to move that apostrophe over, but I'm also going to click that S and I'm going to just drag it over to where everything is touching. Okay, and then I'm going to select everything and I'm going to Command Shift and the plus sign. So this is welding everything together, so it'll be one cohesive cursive name cutout. Okay, and essentially this is your finished file. We're done with the design process. However, we do have to change lines over and fills over to where they're going to be cut files or engraved files. Okay, so everything that is going to be engraved, I'm going to press Shift on my keyboard and I'm going to select all my engraving files. So we have day of engraved, we have first, last, and 100th, and then going down here, these letters right here and the rectangles. I'm going to select everything like that. I'm going to come down here into fill and stroke. I want to add a fill. We're going to go over here to the blue, and I'm just going to make them blue, any shade of blue that you want. Okay, now I'm going to click out of that. Okay, so in the Glowforge, you can have score lines, and what score lines are is it just does one single pass on your laser cutter. It saves a lot of time than doing engravings like these lines. Now, I'm not going to be able to score my ruler because it'll end up looking like weird bubble letters. So I'm only going to do the score lines for like things like that. I need to paint, like a reminder of where I need to put my paint, or like I want my backer board to have those lines to look like notebook paper. So what I'm going to do is now selecting only the lines on my notebook paper, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm also going to select the lines that are over in my pencil. Okay, I have all of my score lines connected. I'm going to go over here into stroke. I'm going to come over here and click the red. And then I am just going to make them all red. Okay, and then I'm just going to click out of that. So now my score lines are red, my engravings are blue. Okay, so for this next step, it's not very important if you use a Glowforge, because when you go and upload this into the Glowforge app, because this is technically going to be an SVG file, everything that has different line widths or coloring, it'll all get changed over to a cut file. However, if you are using a different program, or if like, let's say you get an Omtech or an Epilogue or a different laser cutter, having fills or different line widths kind of really mess up your project. So just for good practice, all I do is I select everything that is going to be a cut file. I'm going to select all my apples. I'm also going to select my name, my pencil, just the outside. I'm going to select my little arrow, the outside of my ruler, and also the outside of my notebook paper. I'm gonna go down here into fill. I'm gonna right click and press remove fill. I'm gonna go down to stroke, right click and press black. And then for line width, I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna press 0.1. That makes every single thing a cuttable file. Now at this point, we want to save our file. So I'm gonna go into file and then save as. I'm gonna go down here and from Inkscape, I am just gonna change it over into a plain SVG. And then when I'm done, I'm just gonna press save. I'm gonna find my file and press upload. Okay, so I'm just gonna choose the medium draft board setting for right now because I wanna make sure that everything is set up correctly. We have the notebook here and it looks like my lines that are supposed to be score are set to cut. Day of engraved are all engraved files, which is perfect. When you load up into the Glowforge, it's going to read as like in blue is engraving. We need to set these over to score lines. So I'm going to come over here and we're going to do score. This line for some reason is a different color, so I'm going to press score. So now I have some score lines and some engraves. We're going to drag this ruler in. It looks like my engraving is fine, but my rectangles did not convert over to a engrave file for whatever reason. So I'm going to click on the cut and I'm going to set it to engrave. So now we have an engraving. Going over into my pencil, my lines turned into score lines and everything else is good to go. We're going to drag that apple in. My apple's going to cut out but engrave the first. Doing the same thing with all the other apples. Looks really good. Everything up here is going to be cut. And just to verify, this name right here looks perfectly fine. Look at that. Looks so stinking cute. Okay, so that's it for the design portion of this project. You're going to want to go to part 2 where I am going to show you how to cut and assemble all of this entire school board. Also, a couple tips and tricks on like how to paint your objects and cut your objects, how to make the sign interchangeable, all that jazz. I will see you over in part 2.